Hi, my name is Abby Heckel, and for this Biology 282 lab presentation, I will be analyzing the accuracies and inaccuracies of a news article and comparing it to the original primary article in order to determine whether or not the news article is reliable. The primary article is titled Recent European Drought Extremes Beyond Common Era Background Variability. And the news article is titled, Summer Droughts in Europe Are Now Far More Severe Than Anything in the Past 2,100 Years Due to Climate Change, Study Warns. As previously mentioned, this news article is titled, Summer Droughts in Europe Are Now Far More Severe Than Anything in the Past 2,100 Years Due to Climate Change, Study Warns. And in this article, it explained that severe droughts in Europe have had a negative impact on the economy and land resources. In order to determine if these rise in temperatures is normal, researchers chose to analyze the temperatures over a long period of time. Oak trees from the past 2,100 years were studied in Europe. This form of testing was used because in previous experiments, data had been limited to only temperature. However, through this type of data collection, it allowed the presence of a drought or excessive precipitation and other weather conditions to be observed. In order to determine the type of climate that was present in history, carbon and oxygen isotopes on oak trees were studied. And that is what the image on the right explains, it's a picture of a cut open tree where you can see the difference in the oxygen and carbon values. Oxygen values are dependent on water source, and due to photosynthesis, carbon values are indicated by the amount of sunlight present. Therefore, depending on a variation in these values, the weather conditions for this tree's lifetime can accurately be determined. The trees used in this experiment were from Czech Republic and Bavaria. Over the 2,100-year period, the tree ring isotope data showed that there were wet summers, such as in the years 8200, 720, and 1100, and very dry summers, such as 8040, 590, 950, and 1510. The purpose of this experiment was to find a reason behind the severe and recent summer droughts in Europe. The droughts have a negative consequence on the economy and other areas. 27,080 measurements of tree ring isotopes were used to look at the climate history. Carbon and oxygen isotopes were used from different trees in countries in Europe to identify the type of climate that was present during this period of time. Through identifying the summer climates, the researchers could draw conclusions about whether or not these droughts were a part of a cycle and what other factors, such as climate change, could be contributing to the droughts. A higher carbon isotope indicates a drought because conditions with limited moisture produce heavier isotopes. Different techniques are used to determine oxygen isotopes, but the overall trend is the same. Various causes of the recent droughts were considered, for example, volcanic eruptions. However, based on geographical features, locations, ice ages, and warm periods, and the history that was determined in this experiment, it was determined that the increase in greenhouse gas emissions was the leading cause of the European summer droughts. Overall, the news story article includes a lot of direct quotes, which keeps the information relatively accurate. The news article properly states the sources of oak samples, and although no graph is given, the information is the exact same as in the primary article. Although not as much information is given, the article provides the correct numerical and geographical data. There are no differences in the data expressed in the newspaper article and the primary literature, meaning the reader could get the same information from each article. The main points of the study, such as background information, results, and a brief explanation of why the study is important, were included in the news article story. And on the right, I provided two quotes from the news article that were direct quotes from the primary source. I also included one quote from the newspaper article that simply describes the methods of the researchers. These show that the information in the newspaper article aligns with that of the primary article. While in general this news article does a good job reiterating the main concepts of the study, it does fall short in some areas. Primarily in the beginning of the article, as well as throughout the entire story, the news article discusses the larger issues in depth behind this case, such as the impacts on the economy, rather than staying on topic of the primary article. For example, it went into further background detail of the issue than the primary article did. Although this does not mean the news article is inaccurate, it does require following up on the information of another source to ensure credibility. As expected, the news article adds a little bit of extra fluff rather than solely sticking to the facts. As previously mentioned, the news story uses direct quotes when relaying the data results. However, they do miss out on visual aids that are extremely helpful to the reader. On the right is an image shown in the primary article of the data that was from the oak tree samples. However, right below it is the quote from the news story article that does not give as well of a description to the reader, and it's much easier to understand in visual form. Overall, I would consider the news story article published by Daily Mail to be accurate and credible, due to the fact that the same results were explained, the summary included main points, the researcher's message was appropriately conveyed in the news article, and where the article may fall short in certain details, this does not necessarily mean it is incorrect.